Despite David's personal desire to stay in bed with Alaris, he has a task this morning that he was not sure if he should still do, but he will make his decision when they know more. "Alaris, we need to go," David said as the AI raised the light level. "My Zandno, we need to get things done before we have to get back to the comm, please," David said as he looked down, and the cuddling form of Alaris who had encapsulated him in her sleep. "No, 2 more hours," she mumbled, while she held him tighter. "Then we go." David reached over and stroked a lock of hair out of her face. "No, my Zandno. We have things we need to do." "David, you are my Kosefane, so it is your job to listen when I speak," Alaris said, her voice still sleepy but annoyed. "And as your Kosefane, I have the job of making sure you are the leader and that you maintain that leadership," David said softly before taking a playful bite at her ear. "Now we need to go and start the trial, and you need to go and see if we succeeded." She leaned up and away from him, her slowly opening eyes showing annoyance but understanding. She knew he was right. "Fine, but I don't want to hear you complain if you lose." She slowly shifted over him, stealing a kiss as she did. "I want to know what will you do if we did." "I don't know yet. I don't think my plan has changed, but I'll have to change some words around," he said as he moved to the edge and sat up. "Besides, it's not like I plan to fight her again. Just use her." Alaris gave him a look that seemed more like an uncertainty than a warning. "Just don't go overboard. The Duchess doesn't want someone dying," she said as she walked over to the sanitation area and got into the shower. David stood up and found her a towel. "And I don't plan to. But if we did, then I'd use our fight to announce it to the pack. It's mostly your sisters and those who are too young to be left alone on board, right?" he asked in a raised volume so she could hear him. "Yes," she called back, "and some of their mates, so you'll have about 23 eyes on you." She stepped out and took the towel before wrapping it around her. David found himself staring at her. Her chest and hips were a bit bigger than the average for her kind, and that was something David loved as it made her a bit more unique. But his daydream was cut short as she snapped to focus him again. "Oh, yeah, sorry," David said as he shook his head. "Yeah, that's more than enough of an audience for my plan." "Okay, I'll trust you not to go overboard," she said as she walked out and started to get her uniform on while he jumped into the shower. "So, I'll announce the trial and make the Duchess the judge, then I'll head over to medical. The test should be quick, and hopefully I'll be back before she gets tired. Sound good?" David heard the plan. "Yeah, that's the plan. I'll try to keep her from overextending herself," he said as he stepped out and caught the towel she threw his way. "Not that I want to do this. I would have to get her to reach her limit while not attacking her. It's a stupid plan." As he got his underwear back on, her arms came around him and hugged him from behind. "No, my Kosefane, it's a brilliant plan." Her hands came to his lower chest and held, as her head rested on the center of his back, between the shoulder blades. "The plan you have will paint you as a just but powerful man, one not to be challenged but one that wouldn't abuse his power." "Yep, a stupid plan," he said with a chuckle, then hissed at the 10 new cuts on his chest. I know, and I am not doing this for me, I am doing this for you." He tapped her arms to let her know he needed to move, something she allowed. After all, they have tasks to do, and they got dressed quickly and headed out, but not before exchanging a kiss, hers for good luck and his for his love of her. The atrium was transformed again, this time a large platform held in the middle of the largest open area. Around the outer edge of it, the Zandrafane pack had gathered along with some other races, mainly Clocash and Zangoth. David's eye found the one person he needed here, and she was. Janris was sitting on the shoulders of 2 of what David figured was her mates. She seemed ready to fight based on her attitude. Maybe David did get under her skin. As he walked up, he took off his jacket. While he wasn't as strong as he was when he got out of ISO, he was stronger than he was in medical, after Yayuli's attempt on his life. Alaris was up by the middle, and Yayuli was walking up on the other side. There were also 2 medical officers on either side, ready to jump in when the fight was over. As they were close to the middle but equal distance from each other, Alaris spoke. "We are gathered to witness the trial by combat between David Solomon, Human Liaison Officer, and his attacker Yayuli Hinkarno, 3rd daughter of Cianris Hinkarno." This trial is not to the death. If either of you maims or causes the death of the other, you will be considered the loser and will reap the results of the trial. May the gods above see this trial and give their favor to the chosen," she said and walked to the edge of the stage. "I also choose the Duchess Jaialia Hirosil as the arbiter of this battle. You may begin when ready." David raised his hands into his preferred guard when on the defensive, his arms up and bent at 90 degrees with his fists close to his head, knuckle line at brow height, and a strong foot forward but not uneven in his stance, then shifted his head to point right at Yayuli and let a cheeky smile reach his lips. Yayuli had taken the typical stance for her race, legs a bit more than shoulder-width apart, and hands both in front and behind her, claws out and eyes watching him. "Why are you hiding your eyes?" she says, now noticing his visor. "Come and find out. Trust me, though, you wouldn't like what you find," he said, but his eye was on Alaris, who was making a beeline to the nearest med center. "You don't scare me, Shilchash," she roared and ran at him, her stance staying a head lower. She rushed him, but David is not having it. She swiped her right claw wide, and he dodged back. She followed with a strong kick to his eyes, but he caught her by the ankle and smiled wider. She swung her left, but lost her balance. He had thrown her back with the force of his arm alone and took his stance again. "Why are you smiling?" she screamed as she got to her feet. "Beat me and find out," he retorted. She rushed forward again, her feint easy to see, her follow-up kick easier. He dodged the feint, blocked her kick with a guard, then stepped in and shoved her back. She closed the gap, kicking twice. He parried both. Then she swiped, but he caught her wrist and threw her, spinning as he did before returning to his stance. She rolled to her feet, closing in again. Her claws swung at him, and he caught both by her wrist. She leaped and kicked, both feet on his chest, but he didn't shift, his grip too strong. He let her go, and she hopped back before coming in again. This time her kicks were faster, one to his chest, one to his face, and the last to his leading leg. He stepped back and left her reach, and then stepped in at her last one, grabbed and threw her. She tumbled upright. "Why aren't you fighting me?" she growled. "I am," he said plainly. She snarled and rushed in, her swings wild, yet none found their mark, as he stepped out of each and pushed her back again. She rushed to him, leaping into a kick. One he stepped with a twist out of. Then he came round and pushed her hard, sending her further than she wanted. But she stayed on her feet. Her gaze full of anger, she rushed again, swinging her claw wide. He quickly parried, and she followed with a kick to his side. He caught her under his arm and spun, throwing her again. "Fight back!" she roared. He resumed his stance, and she came in again, her swipes fast and sharp. He blocked all, then she kicked, a low one, aimed at his chin, her kick landing. He stepped back, his visor off, and he faced her. Her ears flattened and her eyes widened. "What?" she said in a broken voice. "Told you," he said, smiling again. They stayed still for a second. She rushed again, her kick low, but he blocks with his shin. She came up swiping at his eyes, and he dodged back. She sent a kick. He caught it, and he threw her again. She came in again, her claws to his chest. He blocked all and stepped in, shoulder sending her back. Then he took his stance again. She came in once more, her kicks harder, 3 at his chest. He took the hits. She swiped at his face, and he dodged back. She followed with a heavy kick, but he raised his leg, blocking her. She swung twice, her claw at his eyes. He parried one and caught the other, but releases her, and she tumbled back. She rushed in again, her twin swiped feints, and he played along. As she leaped, he closed his hands on her legs and threw her away. "Fight back!" she roared. David saw Alaris, and she nodded, a happy and beaming smile on her face, a joyful one. She rushed in again, swinging both arms, but he caught her hands, his fingers locked in between hers, and then he pushed. Leaning as he did, she tried to resist, but he was stronger. Her eyes met his, and fear creeped in, and she noticed that she was tired. Her body was demanding water. Her legs gave way, and her knee found the floor. All the while his dreadful gaze watched her. Fear mixed with panic, and she tried to free herself, but his grip wouldn't release. Though shameful, she bit his arm, her teeth sinking into soft flesh. But he didn't let go. Her mind now accepting this as her end chose to stop resisting, and she went limp, her eyes screaming for a quick death. But he spoke. "I see your skill and merit. Your wish to protect your clan is rigorous, so I hereby forfeit. You have won your freedom as I am now truly your brother, and I wouldn't see you incarcerated." David leaned back up and lifted her to her feet, her eyes still unsure of what is going on. "You fought well, let none challenge that, but you are the victor, for we have reason to celebrate. Our clan will soon gain a new mouth," he said as he released her hands. "Do you challenge Duchess?" He turned to face the Duchess. "No, David Solomon. However, I don't like this game you played," she said in clear disdain for his decision. "Yayuli Hinkarno, you are free to go. Congratulations." Yayuli looked puzzled at the whole end of her trial, but some of the men in the pack rushed to her, breaking her out of her haze. "Wait, what do you mean by our clan?" she asked David while avoiding his gaze. "What do you think it means?" he said, and pointed out Alaris. "I should thank you. If you hadn't used that poison, Alaris and I wouldn't have been able to cement our union." His voice carried sincerity. "So, thank you, Yayuli, for opening a path for me." "Fandra Shiolchash," Yayuli said as she saw Alaris beaming a smile. "It's Fandra Hayakish to you, Judain," David said back, knowing full well that calling her a little sister was a bit demeaning. Before he walked over and picked up his visor and looked to Junris, who was still processing what she had witnessed. Private text channel ZLO. "I am proud of you. I have heard from many in the pack. There is a video, and all of them are unsettled. They also heard your declaration." HLO. "I am proud of myself, too. I wanted to punch her so hard, but the outcome I got is better. And this should make it easier to handle them, and if anyone gets uppity, they know you have me to fight for you. How about Janris?" ZLO. "Janris is hiding, apparently. She doesn't understand something, which is good. It means she doesn't know how to win." HLO. "So, all good for now. Do you think she will still try to challenge you?" ZLO. "Maybe, but if she did, she would make it a duo challenge to make it harder for you." HLO. "Easy. You could just stay behind me." HLO. "What did the doctor say?" ZLO. "We did it. He rechecked after he asked who the sire was, had to tell him to look you up in the database." HLO. "I love you, my Zanno Zelo. I love you too, my Cusafane private text channel." David closed the channel and looked at the vitals of his teams. So far, so good. But a blinking light went off, and it was the Alpha team. So he connected. "Go ahead, Alpha," David says as he connects. "Command, we have a problem. Can you request a heavy lift?" Hearth's voice calls out. "The reason?" David asks. "We have a collapsed building. The drones have found people inside. They are trapped," Hearth says back. "Stand by," David says and looks up to the Duchess. "Duchess, Alpha team needs a heavy lift, collapsed building, and survivors trapped inside." The Duchess turns away from the display of the planet and looks at David for a second. "Yes, permission granted. Submit the request to the bridge." David gave her a nod and started the authorization process. "Alpha team, heavy lift inbound standby for ETA." Heavy lift is a request to send a tug down to lift something a shuttle can't handle. Normally, no one needs that, but a collapsed building is an actual need. David waited for the bridge to confirm the request. Tugs are under the captain's purview. "ETA for heavy lift 10 minutes. See to the safety of those trapped until then," David said once a timeline for the tug came through. "Loud and clear command," Hearth responded. Then he got a different request from the science team, so he switched channels. "This is command, go ahead." "This is Hans. I need to have some equipment sent down if possible. Someone in my department would know what it is. Permission to send a request?" Hans said carefully. David looked over to the counter for the next supplies to be sent down to help with the aid efforts. "Next shipment will be in 4 ship hours. Would that be enough time to fill your request?" "Yes, and then some. Sending list now," Hans said back. "Stand by for confirmation of dispatch," David said as he sent the request to the Xenobiology department and got a confirmation of it had been received and someone working on it. "Your request is being prepared. It will arrive with the next shipment." "Thank you, Command." David disconnected and saw an update notification. He pressed it to see what it was and saw it was a message from EDS transmission request for aid acknowledged. Resupply ship dispatched. ETA 1 Earth Week. First Volunteer Fleet of the Red Cross dispatched. ETA 1 Earth Week. Fifth Fleet of the Republic of Humanity Star Corps dispatched. ETA 1 Earth Week, Second War Host of the Xandraphane Conclave dispatched. ETA 3 Earth Week, First Fleet of Exco Guard of the Vil Anis Collection dispatched. ETA 5 Earth Week, the Ambassador of Humanity called an emergency council meeting, seconded by Vil Anis Collection and Xandraphane Conclave. Council has called a halt to the operation of GEV 105 until the arrival of humanity. End transmission. Duchess, permission to update the away teams on X5001C? David asked aloud. She turned to him and paused for a second before giving him a nod. David used his authorization code to connect all the channels of teams on X5001C. All away teams on X5001C. The community has sent aid. We are to hold in system for a week and a day ship time. Keep up the good work and do all you can. Command out. He disconnected and felt a new weight. Duchess, Jaylock said as he looked up, the Jawanorm remaining government has requested that we acknowledge their name for the planet. The Duchess turned and beamed. Yes, what is the name? X5001C is inappropriate. Their name for their home planet is John Kull. It translates to hallowed home, Jaylock said. The Duchess looked puzzled but waved a hand to the tech behind her, and the display showed the new name. Jaylock, relay that information to all away teams. Yes, Duchess, Jaylock said before turning his attention to his terminal. David watched the feed of the different chats the ground teams were using, and boredom crept in, as he would prefer to be down there. However, a notification blinked to life. It was a text message from Alaris. Relax, you're scaring everyone. In a confused face, he looked up, and every member of the command staff had frozen except Alaris, who was whipping her tail and staring at him, a demand he says something. Oh, sorry, David said aloud. I wasn't angry, just upset I can't be on Joan Cool, he said and forced a smile. I am former military, so I'm more used to being on the ground during search and rescue. He let a light laugh go at the end. His short speech seemed to work as everyone started to move again, his face shifting over to Alaris, and an apology took hold, one she saw and smiled in acceptance. The rest of the day will be just as boring. Not that bad, just annoying. David had about 2 hours to go before M.A. would come and switch him out. His mind was already slow when an alert came on at the Task Force 3 voice channel. This is Command, go ahead, he said as he connected, but heard the sounds of gunfire. Command, this is Charlie. We are been engaged by non-natives requesting backup. The voice of Riggs came through. David jumped to his feet and checked the vitals on Samantha. They were strong. What's your position and where is your lead? He called aloud, causing a few to look his way. Sector 70, point L3. Trainer's comms got hit, sir. We can't raise anyone but you, and we are cut off from our shuttle, Riggs said back. Loud and clear. Stay in cover and protect your science team. David looked over to Alaris. Task Force 3 have encountered non-natives and are under fire, he said. She immediately shifted to her terminal and started ordering the Xandradanes next to her. David shifted to the Duchess. Permission to allow the use of deadly force? The Duchess looked confused. Yes. David switched to Task Force 1's channel. Alpha team, come in. Alpha here, go ahead. Task Force 3 is under fire. You are to depart to Sector 70.L2 and flank. You are weapons-free. How copy? David said as clearly as possible, his hands gripping his desk hard. Loud and clear, Hirth called back. Ricardo is spinning up, Rick called after. David switched to a channel for Task Force 2. Task Force 2, what's your location? We are in Sector 14.K4. You are to load up, drop the science team at home base, then proceed to Sector 70.L3. Task Force 3 is under fire. You are weapons-free, David ordered, trying to maintain a clear voice. How copy? Loud and clear, Rick said back. Whiskey business spinning up, Oscar said after him. David switched back to the channel for Task Force 3. Reinforcements inbound, hold tight, he said. Will do. Our science team is hunkered down, no casualties. The enemy is organized, though, Riggs said, the sound of rounds passing by in the background. Firebat here, I was spotted and had to dust off. Can't get close for an evac. Daniela said, too. Firebat, stay out of enemy range, but call out movement. Charlie team, keep the Xandraphane safe. Command out, David ordered. Before switching his display to that of the sector, it only showed parts of the away teams. He then switched to a team-wide comms. so that all the elements of the human contingent could hear him. Enemy force is organized. Resistance is high, however. You are all members of the 212th Orbital Assault Troopers. We fought on 50 different theaters. We repealed the Jakkaol at Salur's city. We broke the blockade at Kiesaris. We held the line in Kamoy. We will win and protect those in need. Now go and fight, for we are but one thing. Monsters! Came from 15 different voices, their calls overlapping and causing static. David disconnected and ripped his visor off before squatting down, breathing hard and fast, his hands still gripping the desk, while it broke from the force he was using. His mind summoned a single thought: I should be down there.